Hi, my name is Stella Crawford, and I'm 33 years old. Today, I'm going to tell you my story. But before I continue, please like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear more real stories like this. Stories people will tell you are dramatic until the police report proves otherwise. My sister posted my safe house location online to prove I was overreacting. 2 hours later, the police found someone waiting outside the door. You posted what online? My voice cracked as I stared at my phone screen, the blue-white glow painting my fingers, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts. Oh, relax, Stella, it's just TikTok, my sister Kelsey said, laughing like I'd just told a joke instead of describing a death wish. Your whole damsel in distress routine was getting embarrassing. I pressed my palm against the kitchen counter to steady myself. The safe house kitchen, plain laminate, beige cabinets, thrift store toaster, blurred around the edges. Kelsey, that's a safe house, I said, each word slow and clipped. Do you understand what that means? She sighed dramatically into the phone, the way she always did when my reality didn't match her preferred storyline. Please, Brandon's not dangerous. You're just being melodramatic, like always. Somewhere in the apartment, the fridge hummed to life. My heart pounded louder. So, here's the thing about having a sister who thinks she's always right. She will burn your entire life down just to prove a point. Until 3 years ago, I thought I had a fairly normal family. I worked as a healthcare claims processor, the kind of job where you memorize policy numbers better than birthdays. I lived in a quiet townhouse 30 minutes from my parents. I paid my bills on time, brought a casserole to Thanksgiving, and scheduled my meltdowns privately, preferably in the shower where nobody could hear. My younger sister, Kelsey, is 29. She works in influencer management, which is basically being a hype woman for people who already believe the world revolves around them. Our parents, Linda and Warren Crawford, own a successful landscaping company. They've always favored Kelsey because she's bubbly and outgoing. Translation: she's loud, photogenic, and never ever admits when she's wrong. Me, I was the quiet one, the she'll be fine child, the one nobody worried about until it was too late. I met Brandon Hartwell 4 years ago at a medical conference fundraiser. He was a medical device sales representative, polished suit, easy smile, the kind of guy who always seemed to know exactly how close to stand to make you feel chosen. He was charming, attentive. He remembered my coffee order after one date and sent me good morning texts every single day. We got serious quickly, maybe too quickly. He moved into my townhouse after 7 months. That's when the mask started slipping. Stella, why didn't you text me back immediately? He demanded one night, jaw clenched, as he held up his phone like a piece of evidence. I stared at him, confused. I was in a meeting, Brandon. I can't always respond instantly. A meeting with who? Was Derek from accounting there? His voice sharpened around the name. It was a staff meeting, I said. The entire team was there. This became our daily reality. He needed constant updates on my location, like I was a package being tracked. He would show up at my office unannounced with lunch. At first, my coworkers thought it was romantic. Wow, your boyfriend is so devoted. I knew better after the 4th time he interrogated me in the parking lot because he'd seen me laughing with my colleague Andrew by the break room. The devotion had teeth. Then the financial control started. Brandon convinced me to add him to my checking account for emergencies. We're building a life together, he said, kissing my forehead. It just makes sense. Within 6 weeks, I noticed charges I didn't recognize, expensive dinners I hadn't attended, designer clothes I'd never wear, electronics that never made it into our home. Are you seriously accusing me right now? He exploded when I asked about a $700 charge. His face flushed, eyes going dark and distant. I buy things for us, Stella. Or are you too selfish to see that? The emotional manipulation was exhausting. He'd punch holes in the drywall right next to my head during arguments, his fists landing so close I could feel the wind. Then he'd slide down the wall, crying into his hands, apologizing, swearing he'd never actually hurt me. I just love you so much, he would whisper. You make me crazy in the best way. The cycle repeated weekly, then daily. Our townhouse walls looked like they'd been through a small war. I learned which picture frames could cover which holes. That's when I started documenting everything. I took photos of the damaged walls from different angles. I kept a detailed journal of his threats and outbursts, dates, times, what he said, what I said, what he broke. Not audio recordings. Just meticulous written records, the way I logged claims at work. Part of me hoped I'd never need them. Another part, the part that had stopped sleeping through the night, knew better. My breaking point came 8 months ago. Brandon got fired from his medical device job for harassing a female coworker. Apparently, paranoia didn't stop at home. He blamed me, of course. "If you hadn't made me so insecure, I wouldn't be like this," he shouted, pacing our living room. "You made me paranoid about other women." That night, he grabbed my phone and hurled it across the room. It hit the wall and shattered, pieces scattering like glass confetti. Before I could react, he shoved me hard into the entertainment center. I heard a crack. At first, I thought it was the wood. Then the pain hit, sharp, white-hot lightning along my ribs. "You're making me do this," he screamed, looming over me. "Why do you always push me?" I didn't push anything, I just existed. And for Brandon, that was enough provocation. I lay there on the floor, breath shallow and ragged, watching dust float in the air like tiny planets. In that moment, a small, clear thought cut through the pain. If you stay, he will eventually kill you. Maybe not on purpose, maybe not all at once, but it will happen. The next morning, while Brandon was at the gym, I moved on autopilot. I grabbed my passport, birth certificate, and laptop, slipped my journal, and printed photos into a file folder. I walked out the front door without looking back and drove straight to the police station. My ribs throbbed with every breath as I parked outside. My hands shook on the steering wheel. The building's glass doors reflected a version of me I barely recognized. Pale, tired, eyes ringed with purple shadows. I stared at that reflection for a long second, then pushed the door open. Whatever my life was before that moment ended right there, under the hum of fluorescent lights and the smell of stale coffee and paperwork. I walked up to the front desk, pressed my palm flat against the counter to steady my voice, and said, "My name is Stella Crawford, and I'm here to report my boyfriend for domestic violence." The officer at the front desk listened, eyes flicking between my face and the bruises beginning to bloom along my ribs, where my blouse didn't quite hide the discoloration. By the time I finished laying everything out, the holes in the walls, the financial control, the shove into the entertainment center that left me struggling to breathe, my voice was hoarse. They took photographs, logged my statement. Someone gently suggested urgent care. Someone else mentioned an emergency protective order. A woman in a navy blazer appeared beside me, like she'd stepped out of a different world entirely. Her badge read, "Simone Richardson, domestic violence advocate." "Stella," she said softly, "I'm Simone. I'm here to help you. You did the hard part by walking in. We'll handle the next steps together." That sentence broke something in me, not in a painful way, in the way a locked door finally gives way. Within hours, I had an emergency protective order against Brandon. His name on a line that said "Respondent" felt surreal, like we'd both been recast in a story I hadn't agreed to be in. Simone sat with me in a quiet corner of the lobby as paperwork shuffled and phones rang in the background. "We work with a local shelter program," she explained. "They run several safe houses around the city. If you're willing, we can move you tonight." I swallowed. "A safe house?" Her brown eyes were steady. "Your location cannot be shared with anyone. Not family, not friends, not online. This address is what keeps you alive while we get the rest sorted out. Do you understand?" I thought of my parents, of Kelsey, of the way they used words like dramatic and overreacting as if they were synonyms for my name. "I understand," I whispered. The safe house was a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet complex in Sterling Heights, about 40 minutes across town. Beige carpet, neutral furniture, the kind of place that looked like a generic photo in a rental listing. To anyone else, it would have seemed painfully ordinary. To me, it felt like being able to breathe for the first time in months. Simone helped me bring in the small suitcase I'd rushed to pack and a cardboard box, holding my laptop, file folder, and the pieces of my shattered phone. She handed me a printed sheet with rules and numbers. "Your mail will go to a P.O. box downtown," she said. "We'll arrange that. You'll use a different route anytime you go into the city. And Stella," she hesitated, making sure I was actually meeting her gaze, "you might feel tempted to downplay this when you talk to people you love. Don't minimize to make them comfortable. You don't owe anyone that." That night, I lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling. Every creak of the building made my body tense. My ribs throbbed in time with my heartbeat. I took medical leave from work, citing health reasons. That wasn't a lie. I had 2 cracked ribs and bruising that painted my torso in purple, yellow, and sickly green. I sent a simple email to my manager. Typed, erased, retyped. I didn't tell anyone at the office the full story. Not yet. When I finally worked up the courage to call my parents, My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. My dad, Warren, picked up. Stell, everything okay? I had to swallow twice before my throat worked. I left Brandon, I said. I'm somewhere safe. I can't say where. Silence, then a sharp breath. Are you all right, sweetheart? Do you need money? Anything? For a moment, I heard the dad I'd needed my whole life, the one who saw me, not just the version edited through Kelsey's commentary. I'm okay for now, I said. I just need time. When I called my mom, Linda, the tone shifted. Are you certain you're not blowing this out of proportion? She asked. Brandon always seemed so polite when we met him. Mom, he sent me to urgent care with cracked ribs. There was a rustle, like she was moving dishes around. Well, relationships are complex, honey. Maybe you both need couples counseling. These things are rarely one-sided. There it was, the deflection, the refusal to look directly at the ugliness. Classic mom. But it was Kelsey's reaction that truly gutted me. She called 3 days after I'd moved into the safe house, her voice bright and annoyed, like I'd inconvenienced her schedule. So you just abandoned him without even trying to fix things? She demanded. Kelsey, he assaulted me. I have cracked ribs. I sat at the small kitchen table, fingers tracing the fake wood grain. There's a police report and an emergency protective order. Okay, but what did you do to provoke him? She asked, as if she were casually discussing a weather app. You can be pretty cold sometimes, Stella, you know that. I stared at the phone, stunned. Are you seriously blaming me right now? I'm just saying you always play the victim. Remember in college when you claimed that guy Cody was stalking you? That turned out to be nothing. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out sharp and humorless. Nothing? Cody followed me to 4 different classes, waited outside my apartment, and campus police had to escort him away, Kelsey. Yeah, but nothing actually happened, she said. You made it into this big production. You always do. This was her pattern. If something bad happened to me, it was either my fault, my exaggeration, or my imagination. If something mildly inconvenient happened to her, it was a tragedy that required full family mobilization. I'm not having this conversation with you, I said, and hung up before the trembling in my hands turned into a full-body shake. Over the following weeks, I focused on healing. Simone checked in regularly, sometimes bringing coffee and a stack of pamphlets I wasn't ready to read yet. She helped me file for a permanent restraining order and connected me with a therapist, Dr. Nena Castellano. Dr. Castellano's office was a small room with soft lighting and shelves full of books that looked well used rather than decorative. She had the kind of face that made you feel like you could say the worst thing you'd ever thought, and she still wouldn't flinch. Brandon's behavior wasn't your fault, she said in our second session, after I'd spent 40 minutes listing all the ways I'd tried to make him happy. You didn't provoke anything. You existed. He chose to respond with control and violence. I picked at the seam of the chair cushion. My family keeps hinting that I overreact, that I should have tried harder, stayed longer. They're wrong, she said simply, and we'll work on the part of you that still believes them more than you believe yourself. Meanwhile, Brandon was busy rewriting the story online. He started posting on Instagram about how I'd abandoned him during his darkest hour. Black and white selfies with captions about heartbreak and betrayal. Long posts about how he'd made mistakes but deserved forgiveness. He painted himself as the wounded, misunderstood man whose cold girlfriend walked away when he needed her most. Some mutual acquaintances believed him. A few messaged me, asking if I'd really just up and left without warning. I didn't answer. Let them think what they wanted. I had bigger problems than his fan club. Kelsey, however, launched her own campaign. She texted me daily with unsolicited advice about healthy communication and the power of forgiveness. You're being absolutely ridiculous, she wrote one afternoon. Brandon came by Mom and Dad's house yesterday. He seems genuinely remorseful and really wants to work things out. My blood went cold. He went to their house. Did they let him in? I typed with shaking hands. Well, yeah, she replied. He wanted to talk about you. He's really torn up about everything. I immediately called my parents. Why are you entertaining Brandon at your house? I demanded, the second Warren answered. He has a restraining order. He's not supposed to contact me or my immediate family. Well, technically he didn't contact you, Dad said, sounding uncomfortable. He just wanted to explain his perspective. My grip tightened on the phone. That's not a loophole, Dad. That's a violation. Linda cut in from the background. He seemed very apologetic, Stella. You can't expect us to be rude to him. I wanted to scream. My own parents were inviting my abuser into their home because the idea of telling him no made them uncomfortable. I documented the violation, date, time, what they'd said, and informed Simone. She contacted Brandon's probation officer. He received a formal warning. My parents got angry with me for causing trouble, but Kelsey took it to a whole different level. About 7 weeks into my stay at the safe house, I started noticing things. A silver Honda Civic that looked vaguely familiar kept appearing in the apartment complex parking lot. Not every day. Just often enough that a prickle of unease started living at the base of my skull. One evening, after a therapy session, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper. I see you. No name, no return address. Just 3 words that turned my spine to ice. I reported everything to Simone and the police, but without concrete proof, there wasn't much they could do. Then, one afternoon, I was collecting mail from my P.O. box downtown, the one Simone had arranged, so nothing came directly to the safe house when I saw it. Brandon's black Ford Mustang, driving slowly down the street, windows rolled up, head turning as if he were searching for something, or someone. My hands started to shake so hard the keys jingled in my fist. There was no way he'd found me randomly. The safe house was 45 minutes from my old neighborhood in a part of Sterling Heights I'd never visited before. Someone had told him enough to get close. Someone who knew just enough to think it wouldn't matter. I drove back to the apartment complex with my jaw clenched, every mirror checked twice, triple-checking my locks when I got inside. I sat at the small kitchen table, opened my laptop, and typed my own name into the search bar. And that's when I found it. The search results loaded slowly, as if even the internet hesitated to show me the truth. At first, there was nothing unusual. Old photos, a couple of outdated work listings, my LinkedIn, a charity 5K I'd run years ago. Then a thumbnail caught my eye. Bright colors, a familiar face, Kelsey's face. Her TikTok account, public, verified, full of videos where she giggled into the camera about skincare routines and brand partnerships, featured a new post uploaded 3 days earlier. I clicked it with a sinking feeling, every muscle in my body tightening as if bracing for impact. The video opened with upbeat music and Kelsey's voice in a sing-song tone. Visiting my sister at her adorable new place. The camera panned behind her, and there it was. My apartment building, my street, my safe house. The building number 3847 sat in full view behind her, crisp and clear. She'd tagged Sterling Heights. She'd added hashtags like #Sisters Day, #Fresh Start, and unbelievably new chapter. 42,000 followers, 79 comments, 3 days of exposure. My vision tunneled. The walls of the apartment seemed to close in, pressing closer and closer until breathing felt like swallowing knives. Someone had told Brandon enough to get him into the neighborhood. But Kelsey? Kelsey had given him the rest, wrapped in pastel filters and trending audio. My phone almost slipped from my hand as I called her. She answered on the 3rd ring, cheerful and oblivious. Hey, Estella, what's up? You posted where online? The words tore out of me, ragged and shaking. What? She asked, distracted, as if she were stirring something. Oh, that? Relax, it's just TikTok. Your whole crisis vibe was getting old. That is a safe house, Kelsey, my voice cracked. Do you understand what that means? Do you have any idea how dangerous? Oh my God, you're so paranoid, she interrupted. I barely showed anything. You showed the building number, I said. You tagged the neighborhood. You broadcasted my location to your followers. Well, she said, irritation replacing her fake sweetness. Maybe if you'd answer your texts and stop acting like the star of a Lifetime movie, this wouldn't have happened. Maybe if you faced some consequences, you'd stop making everything about yourself. Consequences. She said it like she was teaching me a lesson. I held the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. You put my life in danger. You're overreacting, she snapped, as usual. And then she hung up. Just like that, as if she hadn't potentially signed my death warrant. I immediately called Simone. She didn't waste a single second. Pack a bag. I'm calling the police. Don't open your curtains. Stay away from windows. I'm on my way. Her voice was steady, professionally calm, but underneath it, I could hear something I'd never associated with my situation until that moment. Urgency. Actual life or death urgency. Within 30 minutes, 2 officers arrived with Simone trailing behind them. One stood watch outside while the other escorted me inside to gather what little I had. The safe house that had felt like breathing room now felt like a target. By midnight, I was checked into a Comfort Inn 2 towns over using a false last name and a room number chosen specifically to avoid patterns. Simone knocked twice before entering and sat on the edge of the desk chair. This isn't your fault, she said. We'll relocate you again. But this, what your sister did, this is serious. I know, I whispered, voice barely holding together. She just wanted to prove I was overreacting. She thinks it's all optics. Simone's jaw tightened. People like her weaponize disbelief. That's how survivors get killed. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound, footsteps in the hallway, a car door in the parking lot, the rumble of the ice machine, made my heart spike. I'd been back to square one for less than 24 hours, and already the walls felt like they were closing in again. The next morning, Simone arranged an emergency meeting with the detective assigned to my case. Detective Christopher Valdez looked at the screenshots I'd taken, the building number, the hashtags, the comments. "This is deliberate," he said, flipping through the images. "Interfering with protective measures can carry serious consequences." "What kind of consequences?" I asked. "Civil and criminal," he said, "depending on intent. And this." He tapped the screenshot of Kelsey smiling with my building behind her. "This looks intentional." Intentional. That word hit differently when applied to your own family. Simone recommended a family law attorney named Lawrence Foster. He was older, silver hair, reading glasses that he kept sliding down his nose as he examined each screenshot like a surgeon inspecting wound tissue. "You can pursue a civil lawsuit," he said calmly. "Reckless endangerment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, violation of safety directives. Your sister was expressly told not to share your location." I nodded slowly, feeling the numbness spread like frost beneath my skin. "I don't just want legal consequences," I said quietly. "She hid behind her curated image for too long. I want people to see what she did." Lawrence raised an eyebrow. "Then you'll want documentation, a timeline, receipts, everything." I spent the next 6 hours putting it all together. Screenshots of her TikTok post, our text conversations where she called me dramatic and said I needed consequences, her messages defending Brandon, a screenshot of the police report, pictures of the bruises, her smiling face in front of 3847, frozen in time like the world's most twisted postcard. And then I posted it. Not to TikTok, not to Instagram. To Facebook, where the adults lived, where relatives, coworkers, old teachers, and our parents' landscaping clients scrolled every morning with their coffee. I captioned it. "This is what happens when someone values being right over their sister's life." My sister posted my domestic violence safe house location on TikTok to prove I was overreacting. I had to evacuate in the middle of the night because my abuser found me. This isn't family. This is endangerment. Then I tagged Kelsey, and my parents, and her employer, and every Crawford relative we shared. The response was immediate. Notifications poured in so fast my phone glitched. Dozens of comments, private messages, people I hadn't spoken to since high school expressing horror and support. Then the tide shifted. Kelsey's friends started chiming in, some defending her, many asking her, point blank, "Why would you ever post a safe house location? What is wrong with you?" Her employer quietly joined the thread. So did several clients from my parents' landscaping business. The cracks spread, fast, faster than I expected. Within hours, Kelsey's perfect glossy mask began to shatter. And for the first time in months, I felt something unfamiliar growing in my chest. Not vengeance, not satisfaction. Just truth. Finally, truth. The next 48 hours unfolded like a slow-motion disaster, except this time, I wasn't the one drowning. Kelsey was. My Facebook post spread far beyond what I anticipated. Mutual friends shared it. Extended family messaged privately, asking if I was safe. Old classmates commented, horrified. And then the comments shifted to Kelsey. Someone wrote, "Posting a safe house? Are you out of your mind?" Another, "I work in social media. Even we know never to show someone's location, especially in a DV case." Her carefully curated image, sunny, bubbly, unbothered, collapsed under the weight of cold reality. No amount of pastel edits or cheerful filters could soften what she'd done. Kelsey, of course, tried defending herself. She commented under my post, "You're exaggerating everything. It was one video." Stella has always been dramatic about everything in her life. But people weren't buying it. One commenter replied, "The video showed the building number, the neighborhood, the exact area. That's not an accident. That's negligence." Another, "As someone who used to follow your page, this is beyond irresponsible. You endangered your own sister." Her replies grew frantic, the exclamation points multiplying like cracks in glass. My parents didn't comment publicly. Of course they didn't. But their landscaping business clients absolutely did. 4 major contracts canceled within 10 days. And those contracts weren't small residential lawns. We're talking Riverside Plaza, Thornhill Country Club, 2 upscale condo associations, steady revenue that kept their business comfortable. The cancellations hit my parents hard. Dad called me, voice tight and unfamiliar. Stella, this situation has gotten completely out of hand, he said. Can't we all just move forward? I let out a short, breathless laugh. Move forward? Dad, Kelsey put my life in danger. She told the world where I was hiding from a man with a restraining order. You know your sister didn't mean harm, he said. She just made a mistake. A mistake? My voice rose despite myself. She visited the safe house, filmed content, posted it publicly, and refused to take it down. That's not a mistake, it's a choice. Mom tried her own angle later that day, sending me a wall of text about forgiveness. We all make mistakes. Kelsey feels absolutely terrible. Can't you be the bigger person? I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. Did she apologize? Genuinely? A long pause, then, well, she's been under so much stress since losing her job. And there it was. Not an apology. An excuse. Always an excuse. Kelsey's employer didn't offer excuses. 5 days after my post went viral, they emailed her termination papers. A digital marketing agency that prided itself on ethical social responsibility couldn't afford to keep someone who weaponized social media to endanger a domestic violence survivor. Her professional reputation tanked overnight. Her TikTok engagement plummeted. Clients severed ties. And then came the legal consequences. My attorney, Lawrence Foster, moved forward with filing a civil lawsuit. Reckless endangerment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, violation of protective protocols. During discovery, we gained access to Kelsey's photos, messages, and drafts tied to the TikTok account. That's when everything shifted, because the truth was worse than what I'd imagined. Kelsey had visited the safe house twice before posting the video. She'd taken multiple pictures and clips, trying to find the angles with the best lighting. She had deliberately filmed the building number because otherwise it looked boring. She'd chosen the hashtags for engagement. She'd drafted multiple captions. There was nothing accidental about it. And then came the messages between Kelsey and Brandon. There they were, text after text of her feeding him information about me. She's in therapy twice a week now. She's taking medical leave. She's staying somewhere with beige walls and a lot of old people. I think she's on the east side of the city. She seems calmer, so maybe she's exaggerating everything again. Each message felt like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just careless, she was an informant, trying to prove that I was overreacting, trying to prove that nothing would happen if he knew where I was. During her deposition, Kelsey finally broke. Tears streaked her face, mascara smudging into raccoon rings. I just wanted people to see she was fine, she sobbed. She keeps ruining family events with her drama about Brandon, and she refused to talk to him. He seemed genuinely sorry, and she wouldn't even consider it. I just thought... Her voice cracked. Thought if he knew where she was and didn't do anything, she'd calm down and realize she was overreacting. Lawrence leaned back, folding his hands. So, he said calmly, you endangered your sister's life. To make family dinners more comfortable? Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I didn't think he'd actually do anything. I watched tears drip down her chin. For once, I felt nothing. The judge reviewed everything. The screenshots, the messages, the deposition, the TikTok. His face hardened. This behavior reflects a profound lack of judgment and a reckless disregard for the safety of the plaintiff, he said. The court finds in favor of Ms. Crawford. The judgment, $68,000 in damages. Emotional distress, relocation costs, increased security measures, legal fees. Kelsey didn't have the money, not after losing her job. She had to sell her Mazda CX-5. She moved back in with my parents. Her online presence dried up. Companies didn't want to be associated with her name. Her perfect influencer world collapsed into a room in her childhood home and a barista apron at Starbucks. Meanwhile, Brandon faced his own consequences. Violating the restraining order, stalking behaviors, evidence of him driving near my P.O. box and searching for my location. The judge laid out his pattern of abuse in the courtroom. Every hole in the drywall, every police report, every detail I'd documented in my journal. Brandon sat there, jaw tight, eyes cold. His mother wept quietly in the back row. Afterward, she approached me in the hallway. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. Brandon was sentenced to 14 months in county jail. Not years, but enough to finally force accountability on a man who'd only ever known excuses. When they let him out, he looked at me with something like betrayal, as if I had wronged him. I didn't look away. Not this time. Outside the courthouse, cold air hit my face like a baptism. Sharp, cleansing. For the first time in years, I felt the faintest spark of something I hadn't dared hope for, a future that didn't include any of them. Not Brandon, not Kelsey, not the version of my parents who chose convenience over my survival. But that future was one I would build myself. Piece by piece, breath by breath, day by day. And no one would take it from me again. The morning after Brandon's sentencing, I woke up in a room that finally felt like mine. Not borrowed, not temporary, not a safe house assigned out of necessity. Mine. A third-floor apartment in a secure building with a doorman named Jonah who greeted every resident like they mattered. The furniture wasn't fancy. Most of it was thrifted, some donated, but nothing had holes punched through it. No walls carried the memory of a fist barely missing my face. No shadows hid the threat of someone pacing outside my door. I'd moved in quietly, using a relocation program arranged by Simone. The address didn't appear in any public-facing records. My employer didn't have it. My parents didn't have it. Kelsey definitely didn't have it. For the first time in years, my living space wasn't a battlefield. It was a beginning. I returned to my job after 4 months, expecting awkward sympathy or distance. Instead, I found something else. My manager, a soft-spoken woman named Janet, asked me into her office. I braced myself. My body still reacted to closed doors, but what she said surprised me. "We promoted you while you were out." My breath caught. "What?" "You're the new supervisor of the claims department," she said. "Your attention to detail has always been one of your strongest assets. And based on the way you documented everything during your leave, we think you're exactly the person we need leading the team." I blinked, stunned. Brandon once told me no one would ever value my skills, that nobody noticed the work I did. But here I was, promoted, trusted, respected. Sometimes healing comes disguised as a spreadsheet and a new office chair. I started saving money for the first time. Brandon had drained my account, but I was rebuilding. Emergency fund? Started. 401k? Active. Future trip? Planning one with friends for next spring. Portland, maybe. A place with water where I could breathe. I adopted a cat from the shelter, a mischievous orange tabby I named Waffles. He greeted me at the door every evening like I was the whole world. I put succulents and herbs on the balcony. I remembered to water them. That small fact felt revolutionary. I saw Dr. Castellano weekly. We talked about boundaries, not as walls to keep love out, but as doors to keep harm from entering again. She helped me untangle the guilt I carried for leaving, for surviving, for choosing myself. "You're not responsible for the outcome of someone else's choices," she reminded me, "even if that someone is your family." I haven't spoken to Kelsey in 19 months. She sends occasional texts, never apologies, always complaints. "My life is miserable. Can't believe what you did to me. Do you know how hard it is living at home?" I never respond. Her consequences were of her own making. She built the fire. She struck the match. She threw it into my life. And now she stands in the ashes, wondering why I won't reach in to pull her out. My parents try sporadic contact, carefully crafted messages about holidays and family unity. But they never acknowledge what really happened. They want peace without accountability, reconciliation without truth, healing without change. They invited me to Thanksgiving last year. I declined with a single text. "I'm supporting myself through the difficult time your daughter created. Maybe focus on why she thought endangering me was acceptable." They didn't respond. Silence as always, was easier for them than facing discomfort. A few weeks later, I saw my mother at the grocery store. She turned her cart down a different aisle without looking at me. I didn't feel sad or angry or anything at all. That's how I knew I was healing. Last month, a mutual acquaintance reached out. "Kelsey wants to meet," she said, "for coffee, to talk things through." I stared at the message. Waffles curled beside me, purring softly. Talk things through? Did she want to discuss the night I had to flee because she filmed my safe house? The weeks she fed Brandon information while calling me dramatic? The way she used my trauma as content? There was nothing to talk through. I declined the meeting through the same acquaintance. Some bridges, when burned, should stay burned. The final hearing regarding Brandon's restraining order was last week. He looked thinner, harder, colder. But that familiar arrogance was still there, like he believed I'd wronged him by surviving. When the judge extended the restraining order for 5 more years, Brandon turned to look at me. His eyes were full of entitlement, like he still expected me to disappear quietly, to remain small, afraid, obedient. I held his gaze. I did not blink. I did not look away. He did. That small victory tasted like freedom. A few months ago, Simone suggested something I never thought I'd consider. becoming a peer advocate. Your documentation skills, your empathy, your experience, survivors would connect with you, she said. So I took the classes, passed the certification, and now, twice a week, I volunteer at the same organization that saved my life. I sit with women whose families don't believe them, women being told they're dramatic, women being pressured to give him another chance, women whose sisters tell them they need consequences. I look them in the eyes and say the words I wish someone had said to me sooner. Your safety matters more than anyone's comfort. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You're surviving. And they believe me because I lived it, because I survived it, because I refused to let toxic people define my worth. Sometimes people ask if I'll ever reconcile with my family. The answer is simple: no. Not because I'm bitter, not because I'm unforgiving, but because reconciliation requires accountability. And they're not capable of that. They want me to forget what happened so they can feel better about themselves. But I remember everything, and I refuse to set myself on fire to keep them warm. So now I ask you, if your sister deliberately exposed your safe house location just to prove you were overreacting, would you ever trust her again? I know my answer. It's the one that lets me sleep at night, the one that lets me build this new life, the one that lets me look in the mirror without shame. No, and I'm finally at peace with that.